Greetings! So this fellow in Vogons thinks that this little game here, Under a Killing Moon, can actually be run on a 486 using Super VGA graphics. I told him that the game would basically be unplayable on a 486 when using Super VGA graphics, and by that we mean 640 to 480. Now he didn't really agree, and he kind of said that I have way too high standards. So I just wanted to really showcase what a 486 could and couldn't do at the time. So here's what we have. We have Quake here that we'll be showing off a little bit. And just to show what a big of a fan of this series I am, I've got Under a Killing Moon. I've got the Pandora Directive, which we'll also be showing today. This is a great game, one of my favorites. And I've also got the fifth one, Tex Murphy Overseer. So I don't really have a 486 anymore. I kind of sold them many years ago. So what we'll be doing is I'll be slowing down this little buddy over here. This is a K63 Plus at 550 megahertz with 128 megs of RAM and a Voodoo 3. So that is overkill, obviously. But these CPUs, they have something that's really awesome. They've got adjustable multipliers, and more importantly, you can disable level 1 cache to achieve 486 speeds. Now, the fellow in Vogons did not really say exactly which 486 he meant, but I think it's safe to assume that he meant something along the lines of a 486 DX266, which was widely available when Under a Killing Moon was released. Now, let's talk a little bit about the processors when this thing came out. So this is late 1994. Whoops. Okay, won't stand, really. Late 1994. December, might have been November. So at the time, the fastest CPUs were the Pentium 90 and 100. And these had been released sometime earlier that year. And they were expensive. Socket 5, I think the Pentium 75 was not out yet. And the Pentium Pro wasn't out yet. The Pentium 120 and 133 were released in 1995, so top of the line was 90 and 100. The Pentium 60 and 66 had been about a year old, almost 2 by this point. The 486 platform had the DX266 for quite a while at this point, so that was the go-to gamers system. And there was also the 486-100 from Intel. Cyrix and AMD had not yet released 100 megahertz models, nor their 5x86 series, which were a little bit faster. So, you know, 486-100 was kind of high-end, sort of. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be slowing down this little buddy here by disabling the caches, the level 1 cache, and we'll see what happens. You know, hopefully I'll be getting around that speed. Now, before we start, we gotta take a look at the system requirements for these games. So, Under a Killing Moon officially required, let's see if I can get this. Yeah, so it required a 486 DX25 SVGA card and 4 megabytes of RAM, and of course a single speed CD-ROM drive, whereas it recommended a 486, double speed CD-ROM, and 16 megs of RAM. This was insane. 16 megs of RAM. You can see that it recommends actually a 486 DX2 66, and that's what we'll try to aim for. Now, it requires SVGA because the game itself, the interface, is actually running at 640 to 480, and the action is taking place in a small window on the upper left corner. Or rather, not so small window, but anyway, The Pandora Directive, on the other hand, this was the sequel released a couple of years later. And system requirements. I don't know if that comes off clearly, but they required a 486 66, 8 megs of RAM, and recommended a Pentium and 16 megs of RAM. Now, the reason I've got Quake here is because I made the comparison that playing Under Killing Moon on a 486 on SVGA resolutions would actually be less playable, less desirable than playing Quake on a Pentium MMX at 640 to 480. I think they actually might be on par. Both are not very fun. So that's that. Now, other games around the time of Under Killing Moon. Again, late 1994, the benchmark title was Wing Commander 3. That was like the crisis of its time, and it was just really, really demanding. Doom 2 had just come out. Doom 1 was a year old by this time. And Descent had been released in early 1994, as had been System Shock, although it was re-released around that time with CD-ROM. So let's get down to the meaty-greedy. Let's power up the system. Oh shit, we've got some glare going on here. Let me fix that. That ought to fix it somewhat. Here's the utility I was talking about. Alright, so here are the options available to us, and we're going to disable level 1 cache. And I've got Phil's VGA benchmark here. Now we're going to run 3D Bench and PC Player benchmark, just to make sure. Just to make sure that we are indeed at 486 DX266 levels. Alright. And PC Player benchmark. I'm running this at VGA because Super VGA will take a long time. I'm using a flat screen monitor here just to show this more efficiently. As you can see, it's widescreen, but I've got 4:3 ratio going on here, so the sides have bars, black bars, and 10.3 FPS. And we're going to run Under Killing Moon. Oh fuck. The CD-ROM drive is very, very noisy. As you can see. Now here we got the options. Here are the resolutions. I'm going to go with 640 to 480. And the rendering quality. Now more on that later. Now, just to make it a little bit more clear, this is a 640 by 480 image right here, and right here is the game area. Now let's get this new game started. Now, loading. Alright, so here it is. Now this may look like a static image, but this is actually 3D rendered, and if I press space, I can actually move around. Now granted, this is terrible. This is barely playable right here. Now you can get down to the street, and it will be actually much worse. This is like one of the best case scenarios. Of course, this is with everything turned way up. Now let's get back to these rendering qualities we saw just a little while ago. Now here's what this does. You've got three options here: high, medium, and low. And what the game does is, with high, you've got what you get for. You get what you came for. You get 640 to 480, and that's it. Now, with medium, when you're moving around, it's basically rendering at 320 to 240. So it's doing pixel doubling. And with low, when you press space, it always goes to a full 320 to 240. So with medium, when you're moving, it's 320 to 240. But when you're actually static, you get the full image. Now let's see this in action. Alright, so this is high, and this is medium. As you can see, it takes a noticeable hit in image quality, but it is far better, but still. Now if you put it on low, it's always like this. Again, this is the best case scenario, and I'll show you what I mean. But yeah, as you can see, if I'm moving around, the quality is shit. But if I move really slowly, it is high quality. Now this is really slow. Now what other options do I have? I can make the window smaller. Alright, so this is the smallest it can go. And obviously, yeah, okay, this is playable, obviously. But this is like 240 to 180, I believe. Yep, 240 to 180. If we go to 320 to 240, it is slightly better. Now you'll notice this doesn't go full screen anymore. And this is successive, you know, until it gets off the borders of this window right here, and then goes full screen to show you more detail. This is somewhat okay here. Oh, fuck no. And now it goes full screen. Let's go to medium quality. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Now what resolution is this? This is some oddball number. Yeah, 560 to 420. So not quite 640 to 480, but it is okay. Now what if we go to 480 to 360? Yeah, this is not bad at all. It is playable now. I mean, here it's really smooth, but bam. Okay. See? Here's a... You can see the aliasing here, but when you go slow, bam, it's fixed. Modern consoles pull something similar. You know, you do get like 1080p image, but internally, you know, you get different resolutions. Sometimes it's actually rendering at 720p or 900p. Let's go outside. I don't know if this is the whole loading in squares thing. It's probably just, you know, a loading screen and just trying to make it a little bit funky, but I always like to think this is sort of how the game is rendering itself. Wow, my CD-ROM is about to explode. Like right here where I'm viewing way up in the distance. Oh, it's not pretty good. Now, let me show you what the other guy said. He thought that if I turn everything all the way up, I can get some nice quality. Yeah, it does look good, but wow. Put it on medium quality on the rendering, it is sort of doable. And you'll notice as soon as I get all the way up here, yeah, it can pull it off somewhat, but then you turn the other way around, bam. So you gotta make the window smaller. That's a definite improvement right there. I wonder. Alright, so let's say I play it like this. Yeah, this is actually pretty good. I'd hate to see how this game runs on a 386, 25, or even a DX40. So DX266, no, it can't do Super VGA, not playable. Now if you do use medium rendering quality, yeah, I guess, back then this was very impressive. Yeah, this is like right here, like 5 frames per second, maybe 7? Yeah, maybe around 7. Now you do get closer to buildings and such. It has basically less to render, and you're getting far more playable frame rates, but still, this is not Super VGA. Now that was Under a Killing Moon. Let's take a look at the Pandora Directive. Now, I want to say a few things about the Pandora Directive. It is one of my all-time favorites. I really just love this game. And as you can see, it's got pretty much identical options here. The game is a little bit more advanced. It does use the same engine, but it is slightly more advanced. I mean, it came out in 1996, so it does look up quite a bit better. Let's start a new game here. Yeah. And this is in a very small room, mind you. Now, let's put the rendering quality on medium. A little bit worse than before. Go to bigger room. Wow. Now I'm not sure if the loading is so slow because it's reading off the drive or because of the CPU. Probably a little bit both. But yeah, it is definitely worse than before. Now it's approaching playable levels. If I put the rendering quality back up on high again, it's not really, no. Okay, let's get out of here. Now, I'm not using low quality because I think it looks terrible, and you're not really gaining much, are you? And it takes time to transition from a 640 to 480 image to 320 to 240. Alright, we got a cutscene here. Alright, so we're back on the street. Now the reason I'm going back here is I want to show you what a few years do. Just how much better the game looks. Both games take place in the same neighborhood. And in both games you start off in Tex's office and you can get down on the street. And it's the same neighborhood, but it does look better. And wow, what do you know? When using a smaller window that can fit in the actual border of the game and medium quality, it is playable. I mean, not something I would play today, but back then, you know, if I had a 486 DX266, I had played the third game, which was Under a Killing Moon. We haven't talked about the first two games. No one ever does, honestly. And I wanted to play the sequel, you know, the Pandora Directive. I could totally, like this, yeah. I could totally pull it off. Super VGA, not a chance, but what kind of resolution is this? It is 428 to 324, so definitely a little bit better than 320 to 240, but no 640 to 480, and I am still using medium quality, which is basically doing pixel doubling. It basically reduces the resolution in half when I'm doing this. You know, when I'm moving around, And this is very smooth, it's slow. I'm doing some slow movement, enough to get the pixel doubling. But it's decent enough until I, of course, turn around the corner right here. This is where Slugland awaits me. So that's that. But I do have one more thing I want to do. I want to hook up a Pentium system I've got and run Quake, and we'll see what's going on, Alright, so we're back. We've got a different kind of beast here. We've got a Pentium MMX running at 233 megahertz, and I just ran a little bit of Doom. So we've got Phil's VGA benchmark once more, and everything is enabled. All the caches, everything. We're just gonna see how fast the Pentium MMX can run Quake. By the way, this thing is configured with 64 megs of RAM, and it's a little loud. I don't want it that loud. Alright, so this is 320 to 200, yeah. Let's run a little time demo. Now here's the good thing about Quake. You can run a time demo and actually see exactly what kind of frame rate you're getting. And this is pretty fast, obviously. Yep, almost 50 frames per second on average. I was running at 640 to 480. I have a feeling it's going to be slow. Wow. Okay, holy shit. It's actually not that bad. I gotta be honest, I was half expecting it to be like below 10 frames per second, but this is like 15? Holy shit! 16 frames per second. 15.9 to be frank, but 16 frames per second, that is pretty good. Now if we were to make concessions like we did with Under a Killing Moon on the 486, and we would go and lower the screen size a little bit. I'm just going to take it down 2 notches. It's not too bad, is it? It is a smaller window, as you can see, because it was occupying a little bit more. You can see there's a border around here, but let's see. Time demo 1. Alright, we'll just let it finish once more. "20 frames per second, ladies and gentlemen. And if we run the game a little bit on our own, yeah, this is not too bad. I mean, especially here, where the areas are somewhat small. But even here, it's not too bad. Holy shit, I did not expect it to be that good. Keyboard aiming. Who was shooting me? So, to summarize, Super VGA games on a 486, or rather, Super VGA 3D games on a 486, I don't think they are possible. Maybe on a high-end 486 like the faster Cyrix and AMD CPUs, the 5x86 as they were marketed as. These were running at 120 and 133 megahertz. But still, to play Super VGA 3D games, maybe back then it would have been doable. I mean, you gotta remind yourselves, nowadays we take 60 frames per second as the golden standard, and maybe there are more high-end users that use very fast refresh rates, like 120 hertz or 144 hertz, but you know, this is still on the high end, on the cutting edge, not just high end, on the cutting edge. And you know, people playing competitive games, I can understand that, yeah, it does give them an advantage. But 60 frames per second is the target, you know, what we want most of the time. So we have been spoiled, and in the early years, you know, getting 30 frames per second in a 3D game was the dream. You know, unless, of course, you had arcade cabinets, in which case, you know, fluidity was what you were aiming for, and it didn't matter the cost. You know, you got what hardware you wanted. Sega was notorious for this. I mean, their Model 1, 2, and 3 arcade boards were amazing pieces of hardware, but they would cost like thousands of dollars, no joke. So on the PC market, you know, and even on consoles, you know, 20 frames per second was considered pretty good, you know, really. But 30 was like amazing. When the Voodoo 1 came out, you know, it ran GL Quake at 25 to 30 frames per second, and that was considered amazing at 640 to 480. I mean, what can I say? You know, here's the MMX. My original claim still stands. I could not believe that it would run so well, actually. It ends up looking better. Obviously, it's Quake. But I don't have to do any fancy, like, pixel doubling. Not that I would have been able to. Quake doesn't offer that. But, you know, I get a small concession by, you know, lowering the window. And even when full screen, I get much better frame rates. You know? Well, not much, but I am getting a better frame rate than I was with Under Killing Moon. Not to mention Pandora Directive. I mean, that's it. If anyone has a real 486 DX266, you know, and can actually dispute me, you know, with a video like this, showcasing, hey, you know what, you're wrong, it's actually running faster. Maybe I am actually in between a 486 DX33 and a DX266 in terms of performance, but judging from the two benchmarks I did, I was right on the spot, you know, it seemed. So if anyone has a real 486 DX266 and can actually show me, yeah, this is it, by all means, feel free to do it. Just be nice about it, and yeah, I've got no issue. The reason I did this video was just to showcase it, honestly. Like, you could not do 3D like this and get playable performance on a 486. That's why the Pentium was so big, and that's why 3D accelerators were so big back then. Because they totally showed the world what you could do when you took all this work from the CPU and you offloaded it on a chip that was designed to do this, you know? And of course, I wanted to disrespect the guy that made the posts on Vogons because he was quite a dick about it. Now, obviously, no hard feelings, you know? This was actually fun to do. But, you know, it was actually a little bit irritating, the way you typed it. Sometimes with written word this is lost, so that's why I was a little cheeky on my post as well. Alright, so that's it, that's where I would wrap it up, and let's play some games.